careful, don't swallow the seeds, or you'll grow a tree in your tummy.
With this breakthrough, I can cut the global hunger rate in half.
The auditorium smelled faintly of old paper and cheap coffee. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead like hesitant thoughts, and the projector's hum filled the silence between breaths. Dr. Elias Gray adjusted his glasses, took a sip of water, and stepped forward. The screen behind him showed a series of glowing fruit, unnatural hues of green and amber, growing out of cracked stone and scorched earth. He cleared his throat. In the next 10 years, global hunger will reach critical levels. Arable land is disappearing. Resources are finite. But what if the earth was no longer a requirement? He clicked the remote. A news slide, a watermelon the size of a football, pulsing slightly in time-lapse, blooming from a concrete slab. What I've developed is not just a new type of fruit. It's a new philosophy of survival. A seed that doesn't care where it lands. No soil, no water, no sunlight required. Just a place. And time. A hush fell over the room, then applause. Scattered at first, then growing. A woman in the third row stood, clapping slowly. A student whistled. The Dean of Science nodded solemnly from his corner seat, but not everyone clapped. From the back of the room, a voice called out, "What about control?" Heads turned. A man with a thick grey beard rose to his feet. "If your seed doesn't need nature, then it's not part of nature. What happens when it falls in the wrong hands? Or the wrong ground? What if it starts growing where it shouldn't?" Another voice piped up, this time younger, more sarcastic. "What if my dog eats one of your miracle fruits? Do I come home to a Labrador covered in vines?" A few chuckles. Dr. Gray smiled patiently, but his fingers tightened around the lectern. "It's not about replacing nature," he replied, measured and calm. "It's about helping it. These seeds were designed to adapt, to serve, not to conquer." But even as he said it, he knew the line was rehearsed, memorized. It hadn't been for them, it had been for him. The questions faded. More hands rose, some curious, others skeptical. He answered what he could, deflected what he didn't like, and eventually the event drew to a close. He packed up his notes methodically, slid the glowing fruit samples back into a sealed case lined with black foam. As the last of the audience filed out, a small girl trailed behind her mother, pointing at the fruit on the screen. "Mummy, if I eat one of those, will it grow inside me?" Her voice echoed longer than it should have. The mother shushed her, pulling her away. Dr. Gray paused, staring at the empty lectern. "Will it grow inside you?" He didn't answer. Outside, the rain had begun. He stepped into the damp evening, carrying the future in a silver case. Behind him, the lights in the auditorium buzzed. One flickered, then died. Chapter 2. The first bite. Rain tapped softly against the kitchen window. The kind of persistent drizzle that never truly started, but never really stopped. Inside, the lights were low. The kettle hissed on the stove, and the house smelled faintly of books, vinegar, and old carpet. Dr. Elias Gray stood near the window, shoulders tense, jaw tight. His tie was loose. His hands moved as he spoke, sharp and tired. They laughed. They actually laughed. These people, academics, scientists, they sit in comfortable chairs and they mock something that could change the world. His wife Marla stood behind him in her dressing gown, stirring 2 cups of tea. She didn't speak right away. She just listened. It was a skill she'd mastered over the years. They think it's dangerous, that it will grow out of control, he continued, pacing now. But isn't hunger already out of control? Don't they understand what this means? I could send a bag of seeds to the edge of a desert. A desert, Marla. And grow food where nothing grows. She handed him a cup and gently touched his arm. "Elias, you're brilliant. They'll come around. You know how this works. First, they mock. Then they copy. Keep going." He met her eyes, and some of the fire faded, and not extinguished, just tucked away. "Thanks," he said, softening. I know what I've made. It works." Marla smiled and kissed his cheek. "Then show them." He nodded, taking the cup with him as he turned and made his way down the narrow hallway, past family photos and coat hooks, towards the lab he'd built from an old garage. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Time passed. Marla cleaned the mugs. Water ran. A television murmured in the next room. Forgotten. Then she saw it. One of the melons. Left on the counter in a small glass bowl, like a forgotten experiment. It pulsed faintly in the low kitchen light, its green skin almost too vibrant. Not unnatural, just too perfect. She leaned in. "He must have left one out," she muttered to herself. She reached out and touched it. The skin was warm, not just room temperature. Warm. She blinked, then smiled. "You know what'll cheer him up?" she whispered. "Something sweet, something fresh." She set the melon on the cutting board and pulled out a knife. The blade slid clean through the fruit. The inside shimmered, not red, not quite pink. Almost golden. Threads of amber pulp stretched like honeycomb between the seeds. Marla laughed softly. "Looks like something from another planet." She scooped out a few slices and laid them on a small plate. The scent was intoxicating, sweet, floral, and rich. Just one bite. She brought the slice to her lips. It was the most flavorful thing she had ever tasted, like every summer memory at once. Sweet sun, warm air, the feeling of being young. She took another bite, then another, and then she swallowed. The pain hit 5 minutes later, a sudden, deep cramp that bent her forward. She gasped and dropped the plate. It shattered against the floor. Her hands went to her stomach. "Oof! What the hell was that?" She leaned against the wall, breathing through her teeth, and stumbled down the hall. The bathroom light was too bright, so she turned instead into the guest room and sank onto the bed. She curled up, clutch in her belly, eyes clenched shut. Her breath came slow and shallow. Something wasn't right. Down the hall, behind the lab door, Elias worked in silence. Charts, equations, glowing vines. He didn't hear the plate. He didn't hear her whisper his name. Chapter 3. The roots take hold. The clock on the wall blinked 10:47 p.m. Unnoticed. Dr. Elias Gray hadn't moved in hours. The low hum of the equipment, the rhythmic scratching of his pen, the soft glow of growth trays filled with bioluminescent fruit. It all created a trance, a kind of silence that made time irrelevant. Equations covered the whiteboard. Half-filled mugs sat cold on the workbench. Vines coiled in trays of nutrient gel, pulsing faintly. Cell replication holding. Structure stable even without base nutrients. Adaptation rate accelerating in dark conditions. His voice was a whisper into the recorder, dry and mechanical. He didn't hear his own hunger, didn't feel the thirst. But eventually, something cracked through the fog of his obsession. A sound, or maybe just the absence of one. He looked up, blinked. His stomach growled. "What time is it?" He stood, his knees creaking, and pushed open the door to the kitchen. The hallway was dark, quiet. In the kitchen, the lights buzzed. Something crunched under his shoe. He looked down. Shattered ceramic. The plate. Beside it, a small, dull knife. And the melon, sliced clean, its golden interior dried at the edges, as if it had been left out for hours. "Marla," he called. No answer. "Honey, did you make something?" Still silence. A strange smell hung in the air. Not rot, not mould. Something earthy, sweet and wrong. He walked through the house, checking the bedroom, the bath, the back door. Nothing. Then he opened the guest room and stopped. At first, he couldn't comprehend what he was looking at. The room was dim, as if the walls themselves had swallowed the light. The carpet was no longer visible. Vines had grown across it like veins, thick and interwoven, leading towards the bed. Leaves clung to the window frame. A hanging tendril swayed gently, as if stirred by breath, and sprouting from the far corner was something that might have once been a sunflower. Or an arm. He stepped back, heart pounding. "Marla." No reply. No shape in the bed. No sound. Just the rustling of leaves, moving where there was no wind. He turned and hurried back to the lab. Maybe she had come in there. Maybe she'd needed him. But when he opened the door, the room was no longer his. The vines had arrived. They clung to the ceiling and the corners of his desk. His notes were scattered across the floor, some half covered in green tendrils. The growth trays had been breached. Glowing fruits now absorbed into the spreading mass, their light pulsing irregularly, as if in pain. His experimental melon had been split open, and vines were feeding on it, wrapping, merging, drinking. The room was alive, and at the centre of it, something moved. Not walked, not stood, moved. A long, dragging motion, like a body crawling, but not with hands or legs. A shape slid slowly across the far side of the lab, weaving between the vines. No face, no skin, just bark and shadow and long, reaching arms made of roots. It didn't look at him, but it knew. "Marla." His voice cracked. Then he heard the click behind him. He spun. The door. Vines surged from the sides of the frame, curling like fingers, slamming the door shut. He rushed to pull it open, but the handle was wrapped tight in green, the wood moaning as it was overtaken. No. The lights flickered. Something wet dripped from the ceiling. He was locked in. The only way out was through the garden now growing inside. Chapter 4. Rootbound. The fluorescent light buzzed above the glass table. Two figures sat beneath it. Both scientists. Both tired. Both swirling coffee they weren't drinking. Papers were scattered across the table. A copy of Dr. Elias Gray's presentation, printed and annotated in red. Dr. Alan Preet scratched his head. "You heard from him since the lecture?" Dr. Mallory blinked. "No, not a word. I messaged twice." Preet leaned back. "He's probably just buried in it. You saw the way he talked, like he'd found God in a melon." Mallory chuckled. "God in a melon. That's a title." Preet picked up the printout, stared at the glowing fruit captured on page 6. "Still, imagine it. A plant that grows anywhere. No sunlight, no water, no soil, just a crack, and it thrives." Mallory tilted her head. "It's not the growing that worries me." Preet raised a brow. "Go on." She tapped the image. "It adapts, learns where it lands. What if—" She stopped, smiling awkwardly. "No, never mind. Sounds ridiculous." He waved for her to continue. "You're among nerds. Speak freely." Mallory smirked. "All right. What if it thinks? Not just adapts, but responds, merges with whatever it touches. If it fell in water, it becomes aquatic. If it fell into an animal, maybe it learns from it. Conscious thought, evolved through absorption." Preet gave a mock gasp. "Sci-fi nonsense. You've been watching late-night B-movies again?" She shrugged, but her voice lowered. "Still, imagine it. Not a parasite, a colonizer. Quiet, spreading. One seed, one host." A long silence. Then Preet said, "Well, thank God he stuck to seeds and melons, not brains and blood." They both laughed. Just enough to ignore the unease between the lines. house. The night outside was silent. Inside the grey residence, it was not. The lab was unrecognizable, a womb of tangled green, glowing spores and soft, breathing vines that coiled in pulsing rhythm. The walls had vanished beneath layers of plant matter. The floor had become soft and sponge-like. Every surface now felt alive. And at its centre, Elias lay on the floor. His face was half covered in vine threads. His chest moved in shallow breaths. From his fingertips, tiny green shoots had begun to sprout, splitting skin like it was moist soil. He wasn't gone, but he wasn't Elias Gray anymore. His eyes were open, dull, unblinking, watching the ceiling as if he could see beyond it. A soft moan escaped his throat. It wasn't pain. It wasn't recognition. It was transformation. The same thing that had taken Marla had now claimed him. And yet, the vines didn't stop. They grew. Up the walls, across the windows, under the floorboards. They found cracks in the foundation, hairline fractures in the old kitchen tile. They pressed against the back door, which creaked once, and then gave way. Outside, the backyard was quiet. Dead grass, fence, until the first vine slithered across the concrete like a green shadow. Then another, then dozens. They moved like they knew where to go, not randomly, but with intention. One tendril reached a garden gnome and paused, curled, smelled, and moved on. Another found a child's forgotten toy. It wrapped around it, lifted it slightly, and dropped it. Testing, searching, learning. Then the kitchen window shattered inward as something pushed through, not violently, but deliberately. The vines reached into the open air, tasted the night, and kept going. They weren't just plants. They weren't just alive. They were awake. Chapter 5. Bloom. Morning broke over the town of Westridge, but the sun touched no rooftops. It filtered instead through a canopy of green, a thick, tangled overgrowth that had swallowed the streets, the houses, the signs. No building stood untouched. No fences, no sidewalks, no mailboxes. All of it. Wrapped, suffocated, beautified. Nature had rewritten the town overnight. Except this wasn't nature. It was something else. Vines coiled over telephone wires like serpents. Trees that had never been planted now stood tall and impossible, fruit-laden and swaying without wind. Their fruit glowed softly, gold, amber, emerald, as if alive, and scattered among them were melons, dozens of them, growing from the sides of buildings, from chimneys, from cracks in the pavement, heavy and round, pulsing faintly beneath the green veil that now blanketed the world. High above, a bird circled, a simple thing. Black wings, sharp eyes, light as air. It tilted once, then dove. Its claws touched down on a glowing melon, growing atop what used to be a town hall. The rind split slightly under the pressure of its talons. The bird pecked. Once. Twice. A chunk of golden fruit came loose, and it swallowed it greedily. Then it took flight. The wind carried it away. Over the treetops, across fields now overtaken, over an old rusted sign that once read, "Leave in Westridge. Come back soon." The bird flew. Miles passed. Then in the distance, another town appeared. Clean, untouched, still asleep. The bird soared toward it, a seed already stirring deep inside its belly. And as it flew, hundreds of other birds began to rise from the vines behind it. A silent flock, with bellies full of hunger and fruit, and the future. There was no stopping it. The bloom had begun. "80% of those who wander into this place leave with nothing but a glimpse into the darkness. Many are not ready to walk with me in the shadows. And that's as it should be. This place is not for the many, but if you feel something stirring, If the dark speaks and you listen without fear, then mark your place. Click subscribe, not for me, but for what comes next.